first. We're on page 43 in your grammar book, so go ahead and turn to page 43.
No.
And we're talking about an adverb clause. Okay, so this is another clause you're going to learn now. You already know the who, which clause. And this is another one. So a clause, remember, has a verb. A phrase does not. And we've already talked about prepositional phrases and stuff, and the phrases don't have a verb, but these do. And you already know adverb as far as ly adverb, but these are a little bit different. They're still considered adverbs. But an adverb clause is a group of words that begins with what we call a WWW word. And I'll tell you what that is in a second. And it contains a subject and a verb. An adverb clause is a dependent clause, which means it must be added to a sentence that is already complete. Eventually, you're going to start using this in your writing part of the class too. But first, we're learning it here in the grammar book. So notice right here, it says WWW word plus subject plus verb. So here it is. It's called an acronym. Remember how you guys learned fanboys for coordinating conjunctions? It's like that, but it's www.asia.b. I know that sounds weird, but that's a clever way to remember these words. So if you can memorize www.asia.b, it's like a website, right? Then you can remember what these words are. So the first W stands for when, this W while, and then where. A stands for as, S since, I if, A although, and then B because. So we have when, while, where, as, since, if, although, because. Eventually, I want you to memorize those because then it'll be easier for you to spot them. Okay, when, while, where, as, since, if, although, because. And each one of those words is an adverb, and it begins the adverb clause. So those are the words you're going to look for when you mark the clause. And you're going to place parentheses in this book around the adverb clause, and then write AC, that stands for adverb clause, above the WWW word. Write V above each verb and S above each subject. Here's your example. Because Robin was now an outlaw, he had to hide where the sheriff could not find him. So that word because is in our list right here, the www.asia.b, that's the because. So that's how you know that's where it starts. So you put a parentheses there next to because, and then it also includes the subject and verb. So when it completes the thought, because Robin was now an outlaw, that's the whole adverb clause. And then here, where, that's one of the words too. That's one of the W's, where the sheriff could not find him. So we've got our subject verb pairs here. The sheriff, could, and then find, those are the verbs. Okay, so when you're looking for these words, these clauses, you're going to look for one of these words from www.asia.b, and then you're going to look for the subject and verb within that, okay? It says here, commas, we're going to talk about a comma rule, after, not before. So whenever you have an adverb clause at the beginning, the comma comes after it. So here it tells us, use a comma after an adverb clause that comes before a main clause. So here we have the pattern AC, which is adverb clause, comma, main clause. If the main clause comes first, then there's no comma. So main clause and then adverb clause, no comma. It depends on what order it's in, okay? So remember, you can always look back on this page when you're doing your homework this week to help you remember. But your adverb clause is this www.asia.b. So you got to remember at least that part, and then remember each word for each letter. That'll help you find it. Here it says, think about it toward the bottom. Many words can be used as different parts of speech. However, a word can perform only one part of speech at a time. For example, as can be a preposition that begins a prepositional phrase, because we've used that before. And as can be a WWW word that can begin an adverb clause. So it depends on how it's used in the sentence that will tell you if it's an adverb clause or if it's a prepositional phrase. So here's an example of the prepositional phrase. As an outlaw, Robin hid from the sheriff. As an outlaw is a prepositional phrase because there's no verb there, right? As an outlaw, there's no verb. It's the pattern as the preposition plus a noun, no verb. The adverb clause, as he hid in the forest, Robin collected a band of loyal men. As he hid is a verb, right? So because it has a verb with it, that means it's a clause. Remember I told you the difference between clause and phrase. Clauses have verbs and phrases do not. So here we have as a WWW word, plus the subject he, plus the verb hid. So you have to really pay attention. That's why English is so hard, because words can do different things depending on the sentence. So you have to look at where it is in the sentence to determine that. We're going to do this a bunch. So if you're a little not sure right at this point, that's okay, because we're going to practice it a bunch and then it'll get easier and easier as we practice it. But do you guys have any questions about this page right here? Any questions? If not, just shake your head no. Okay. There's nothing on the back of that page, so we can go right into the practice page here. This is page 45. How about Ian? How about you read it to us first here? What's the sentence?
For an entire year, Robin sheltered in Shetterwood Forest, met other outlaws again.
Okay, we got most of that. I think you were accidentally muting back and forth, so we missed some of it. But do you have your book in front of you, Ian? Do you have your book in front of you? Okay, good.
Yeah. For an entire year,
It's okay. We got the most of it. So the vocabulary word is sheltered. And basically that means to hide, right? So he was hiding in Sherwood Forest. He was sheltered in Sherwood Forest, meaning he was hiding or finding refuge there. So go ahead and put a check mark by vocabulary. We've got the article. Go ahead and write them in up here first. And go ahead and find the article and label it AR. And now we've got 5 nouns. Jason, did you have a question?
Yeah, do we need to write the A and the every time? Or
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. So yes, please write A and the every time. I think that's helpful. And then Jason, go ahead and help us find the 5 nouns here.
Year.
Good.
Robin.
Good.
Sherwood Forest.
Good.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
And then I think skills.
Yes, good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got it. Good job. And then Natalia, how about the pronoun? Remember what those are? Pronouns? Remember, the pronouns are the ones that take the place of a noun. So like he, she, they, them, those types of words. It.
He.
Good. He. Good, because that's talking about Robin, right? So it's referring back to him. That's what a pronoun does. So since that was so short, Natalia, I'm going to have you also find the adjectives. Now, the adjectives tell more about the nouns. So the best way to do it is look at the nouns and then ask yourself like which one or how many or what kind, those types of questions.
Entire.
Good. Entire is an adjective.
Shelter.
Sheltered is actually a verb in this sentence. So not that one. Look at
In.
outlaws.
Other.
Other, yes, that's describing which ones, the other outlaws.
And hunting.
Hunting is one. And then there's actually another adjective here, valuable. So that would tell like what kind, valuable hunting skills. So we've got two adjectives together here. Good. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Got that. Okay, Ian, what about the coordinating conjunction? Which one's that?
And.
Good. Do you remember, Ian, what the acronym is for that?
Fanboys.
There you go. So just put a note here for yourself, fanboys. Good. And we got it. You're right. It's and. So put CC on top of and. We're going to come back to the prepositional phrases. Jason, did you have a question?
Should we also write fanboys every time?
Not every time,
Okay.
but just for today. Yeah. I'm going to skip prepositional phrases and come back down here to adverb clause. Who remembers the acronym for the adverb clause that we just talked about?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ian.
WWW Asia B.
.b. Good. So go ahead and
.b.
write that in. Good. You're right, Ian. Good job. Each one of those represents a word. So Jason, do you see one of the words there from www.asia.b?
Wow.
Good. So it starts with while. And where does it end?
I'm guessing at the end of the sentence. Otherwise, I would guess.
No, that's correct. That first guess is correct. After skills. So while he met other outlaws and gained valuable hunting skills, that's the whole adverb clause. Good job. And I want you to label it AC right on top of while. Excellent. Okay, back to Natalia. Help us find the verbs next. Where are the action words or helping or linking verbs?
Sheltered.
Good.
Gained.
Yes. And there's one more.
Met.
Good. Those are the verbs. And now, Natalia, what are the subjects that pair with those verbs? So who sheltered?
Robin.
Good. And then who met?
He.
Good, yes. And then that's also the same subject with gained because that goes together inside that clause. So good. Those are the
Wouldn't it be the other outlaws? The subject? Because
no,
the other outlaws.
because he's the one that met them, right? He met the other outlaws. So the other outlaws is not the subject. You ask yourself, like, who met? He met them.
I mean, for the other verb.
Oh, no, because when it says and gained valuable hunting skills, it wasn't the other outlaws that gained the skills. It was he. He met them and he gained skills. Does that make sense, Ian? Yeah. Okay. So now we have an opener, Ian. Remember the openers, I think we know 3 of them now. But look at the beginning of the sentence. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, pause on that. I'll come back to you on that. Ian, let me ask you this. Where are the prepositional phrases? We got to go back to do that first. So there's 2 of them. Do you see where they're at, Ian?
For an entire year?
Yes, for an entire year. Where's the other one?
Gained valuable hunting skills?
No, remember you're looking for a word that does not have a label yet. So gained already has a verb on top.
In Sherwood Forest?
There you go. So that's the clue. That's the big clue. look for the words that don't have a label, like for does not have anything on top of it, and in does not have anything on top of it. That's a clue. That's why I like to save those for last. They're way easier to spot. Very good, Ian. And then Jason, how about this opener? I'm gonna have you work on the opener. What kind of an opener do we have at the beginning here?
Prepositional.
Yes, very good. Do you remember what number that is?
3.
What is it?
3.
It's actually 2. You're right, Natalia. It's a 2. 2 is
Is it
preposition.
really?
Yep.
Oh,
Because
okay,
I
sorry.
think 3 is the, let me check, but I think that one's the adverb opener.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
That's okay. Number 1 is subject. Number 2 is prepositional. Number 3 is adverb. So for this one, it's prepositional number 2. Good. But you had it right because it starts with a prepositional phrase. Okay, Natalia, how about the capitals?
For
Good.
Robin,
Good.
Sherwood Forest.
Yep. Those are the 4. Now, comma, we either have one that we need to put in or we need to take one out. So Ian, do you know what we need to do there for the comma rule? Put one in or take one out?
Take one out.
Which one?
Outlaws.
Very good, Ian. Because we're only listing 2 things. We talked about that earlier. He met and he gained. So because he's doing only 2 things, we do not need a comma there. If he did 3 things, then yes, we would need a comma. Good. And then Jason, what about the end mark? What do we need at the end?
Period.
Good. Nice. Good job, guys. We got it. Any questions about this page? No?
I'm still working on it.
Don't worry about the bottom. You can do that part later, okay? Okay, so Ian, you should be doing this as we talk about it, okay? Don't wait till the end because it's
Yeah, I am.
okay. You got it now, or are you still writing it?
I think I got it. Yeah.
Don't forget, you guys, I have the answer key for the homework on Google Classroom, but I want you to try to do it by yourself first and then check the answer key. Some parents want to do that part, and some parents are okay with their kids checking their own. So check with them first. If they're okay with you checking your own homework, just make sure you do it first by yourself and then fix it. If you messed up, fix it so it's correct and then turn it into me, okay? All right. If you don't know how to find the answer key, you should let me know because I want to show you where it's at. It's really important that you make sure you got your grammar correct. I don't have time to grade everybody's grammar, and it's too hard to do on Google. So you guys get to grade your own or your parents' grade. So, okay, done with grammar. So let's set that aside. Go ahead and get out your binders and get out the Miller, his son, and their donkey. Go ahead and get that out from your front pocket there. Okay. All right. I am way behind on my grading. I haven't even posted homework yet for this week, so I apologize. I've been like exceptionally busy this last couple of weeks. So I'm planning to catch up in the next few days with grading and then posting the homework. So anyway, just a little note to you guys, it will come. Some weeks are crazy, and this week was. So, excuse me. With your Miller, his son and their donkey, this yellow page, let's start by putting that one away. This is yellow page 39. So let's start with that one. It's going to go behind model charts and outlines. So find this tab back here that says model charts and outlines. They're all yellow. So turn to the back of all those that you have there and then stick this one in there.
For the back of all of them?
The back of all of them, yep, behind model charts and outlines. Stick it in the back of those. That stays there. And then the rest of the Miller, his son, and their donkey goes behind finished compositions. Now, I do want to say that some students have told me that their binder is getting too full. So if that's happening to you and stuff is starting to fall out, just take out the finished compositions because we're done with those. That'll free up space in your binder. If you want to just take those out and put them somewhere else, give them to your parents maybe or something, that's fine. These all go behind finished compositions, okay? And then if it's too full, go ahead and take those out. Maybe you can get another binder to keep the finished ones in. It's up to you guys how you want to do that, or a folder or a file or something like that. But that's where you can free up some space, is to take out your finished compositions, okay?
You told us to take number 5 out. Are we doing that this time?
Did you guys already get number 5 out? I don't think you have yet. I think you're ahead of us, Ian. Just put away number 4, week 4, okay?
Okay, I did
Put away
that.
week 4, okay. And then, yes, now you're gonna, let me put mine away really quick.
I like this story.
You're gonna go back to the front, and then behind the source text tab, you're gonna get out week 5. You're right, Ian, that's next. Odysseus and the Cyclops. This is week 5. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages that you're going to get out from there. Don't get out week 6. You're just going to take out week 5, obviously. Get rid of that. And you need a lined piece of paper. Okay. Okay. Oh, I forgot to have you do one more thing in the binder. In the binder, go to that tab that says stylistic techniques, this one. Sorry, I forgot to have you do one more thing. Stylistic techniques, you should have this page back there. Yours has words on it already. I keep mine blank here. You should already have ly adverb. You should have who, which clause. And now we're going to add number 3. So number 3 is going to be strong verb. Number 1 should be ly adverb. Number 2 should be who, which clause. And now we're adding one more strong verb. You guys got it? Okay, good. Okay, now you can close that up. Make sure to add that. And we're going to start with this blue page. So go ahead and turn to this blue page first. So we're going to introduce, I'm going to introduce something new to you, and they're called banned words. And these are words that you're no longer allowed to use. And I'm not talking about bad words. I'm talking about boring words, okay? So banned words just means, for my class, when you're doing your writing, you're not allowed to use these words anymore because they're boring. Remember, you're learning how to make your writing have more style in my class. So I'll show you how we're going to do this here. Check something really quick. Okay. In that first box, you see where that diagonal line is here. I want you to write the words say/said. Say, said. Those words are overused, especially if you're writing a story that has dialogue in it. a lot of times we use say, said, and it's boring. Okay, so we got to think outside of that box and think of other ways to say it rather than say, said. You could use the word like shouted. So we're going to make a list here of words that you can use. What's another way to say, said? What's another word we can add to this list? You guys have any ideas? Ian?
Exclaimed.
Good. I like that one. Exclaimed. Any other ideas?
Proclaimed.
Proclaimed. Yes. Good, Ian.
Whispered.
Good. Whispered. Maybe like replied. It's a good one. Or asked. Natalia or Jason, can you guys think of one?
Talked.
Talked is one, but it's kind of awkward using that one. Talked.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
keep
that's
thinking
fair.
though. Maybe told. That would work. Told. Can you think of one, Natalia?
Answer?
Answered, yeah. Good. Well, we're kind of running out of space here, but just know that there's more than this. It doesn't stop here. So you can either look up on thesaurus.com. If your parents are okay with that, you can look up another word for say or said, or look in a thesaurus if you have one at home. So, but these are ideas on what you can use instead of say, said. The other one we're going to ban is see/saw. Jason, did you have a question?
So I'm a little bit confused. You said ideas to use, but they're on the banned words list.
So you see how there's this diagonal line right here across this box?
Yeah.
That means this is the one these are banned. These are okay. These are ideas of what you could use instead. Does that make more sense? Okay. So don't use say, said anymore, but you can use these. That's why we're making this list. So for seesaw, you can't use seesaw anymore. But what can we say in place of that? You guys have any ideas there? Looked, okay. Or probably looked at. That might be one. Noticed. Watched. Jason?
Spotted.
Spotted, good. Spied is one. Examined, maybe. This one's a little trickier. But remember, you can use a thesaurus for this too. Either online or an actual book. So be thinking of that when you're writing. Don't use seesaw anymore. You have to use a different word. Here's just some ideas, but there's more than these out there. Okay, so you're going to keep this blue page with the stuff for the Odysseus and the Cyclops. But let's
come up with another word.
Do you have another one? Go ahead.
No, I mean another word for the band list.
We're just doing these two lists right now. Eventually, we're going to keep adding to it, though. It is going to get harder and harder because I'm going to take away more and more words. But just For today, we're just taking away say, said, and seesaw. By the way, seeing or saying, those are also banned. So any form of these words, say, said, seesaw, are no longer allowed because they're boring. That's why. It's going to make you think of better words to use. Okay. All right. Let's look at your checklist next for this assignment. You can set that aside for a second. The checklist is on page 51. Now you're going to see here. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So those words that we added there to use instead of say, said, and seesaw, those are called strong verbs. So I want you to look down here under the dress ups. Notice you have ly adverb, who, which clause, and we have a new one now, strong verb. Now, for an example, one of those words from that list that we said was good, that would be an example of a strong verb. Or, for example, if I say the dog went after the cat, okay, because they do that, right? The dog went after the cat. That word went is weak, okay? It is a verb, but it's a weak verb. So if I said the dog chased after the cat, that word chased gives more of a description of what's happening, right? So you can imagine the dog is going around the tree and up the hill and down the hill and maybe under the deck or something, you know, moving really fast, chasing right hot on the tail, right? So chased would be a better verb, a stronger verb to use instead of went. So when you're writing and you're looking at your verbs, because all sentences have verbs, right? Think of how you can include a strong verb. And you don't have to include a strong verb in every sentence, but at least have one in there. Because remember right here, it says underline one of each. You have to have at least one. You can have more than that, but one of them you're going to underline. So now you're going to have 3 words in each paragraph that you're going to underline. And then everything up here is pretty much what you're used to. The title, rule, and then you're going to follow the story sequence chart. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this one down here. See where it says check for banned words? And it says -1 point for each use. I'm going to eventually start doing that. I'm going to give you a little grace for a couple weeks till you get used to it. But eventually, if I see you use say, said, or seesaw, I'm going to take away a point on your homework. Okay, so you got to be careful not to use those words anymore. But they're here to remind you, okay? All right, you need a lined piece of paper. I forgot to ask you to get that out, but you need a fresh, clean piece of paper. Go ahead, Jason, do you have a question?
How many points are we given before getting taken away? Like 10?
10. Yeah, your homework is 10
Okay.
points. Yeah. So, yep, I would take away points. Not yet, though. Like I said, there's some grace until you get used to it. I'll tell you when I start taking away points, okay? On your lined piece of paper, let's start with that. Go ahead and set it up here, upper left, your first and last name. Today is November 2nd already, so 11/2. Our story today is called, you're going to skip a line, Odysseus and the Cyclops. And it sounded like Ian's heard this story before. Have you heard this one? Okay. Have you heard this exact one from this book before? No. Okay, so this might be a little different variation possibly. And then underneath that, I'm going to have you put SSC. Do you guys remember what SSC stands for? Anybody remember? Jason?
Story sequence chart.
Good. Yes, it does. Story sequence chart. We used to have KWO, and we'll come back to that eventually. That was keyword outline, but this is new. Story sequence chart. Okay. That's like what we used for the miller, his son, and their donkey. So we're going to set up another story sequence chart here. So skip a line, and then remember, draw a line down a little bit to the left, but kind of in the middle of your page, about like that. Between the two pink lines, basically. And then on the right side, we're going to build up your outline. So you're going to start with Roman numeral 1, and then move over a little bit underneath that and do 1, 2, 3. So leave a little space here. So you got Roman numeral 1, 1, 2, 3, skip a line, Roman numeral 2, 1, 2, 3, skip a line, Roman numeral 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll wait till you get that part done. Okay. And then to complete your chart, remember, right on top of the Roman numerals, you're just going to trace that line across about there. Do that on top of Roman numeral 2 and Roman numeral 3. And then at the bottom, wherever your line ends, so you make a little chart like that. Who remembers from the Miller, his son, and their donkey? What did we introduce in the beginning of the story? What was in this box right here? Do you guys remember? In this box? And remember, I gave you the analogy with Kung Fu Panda. What do we introduce first in a story, usually?
The characters?
Who, what, when, where, and why?
Almost, but characters for sure. Characters. And what was this other word next to it? Setting. That's where the story takes place, right? But you're right, Ian, we do ask some questions. And in this box, we're going to ask who and where and when. Who obviously tells us the characters. Where and when tell us the setting. Setting is like, where does the story take place, or when. Sometimes we don't know when it takes place. Sometimes we only know where, and that's okay. So if you don't have an answer for when, that's okay. You don't have to have that in there, but you do have to have who and where. That's really important when you're retelling a narrative story, to start with that. You got to start with the characters. Yes, Jason.
If we don't have a when, do we just not fill out the 3 or?
So it's when you're looking at this, a good question. If you don't have a when, you don't have to answer that question, but it's not that these go in line with these over here. It's just in this box, generally, you're going to introduce who, where, and when if you can. Definitely who and where. So we're breaking away from that sentence by sentence, looking for those keywords. Now we're looking for more of this part of the story, like the setting and the characters. So it'll make more sense as we go. But the next step, though, is to read the story. So go ahead and get out Odysseus and the Cyclops. Now, this story is fiction, meaning it's totally fake, right? It's a totally made up story. It's fantasy. You're going to see that these characters are not even, some of them aren't even really humans. Okay, so I'm going to read the story. We're going to talk about it as we go, but we're going to focus on the characters and the setting mainly, but also maybe you can learn a lesson from the story we'll talk about at the end and kind of just discover what happens here. So, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and start reading and then we'll talk about it. So returning home from the Trojan War, the Greek hero Odysseus and his men encountered a great storm that carried them to the island of the Cyclopes. Notice that word Cyclopes has an E, but our title does not. So this is Cyclopes and then Cyclops. So Cyclopes is going to be a plural. The island of the Cyclopes. These were crude, uncivilized giants who had one round eye in the middle of their forehead. They raised sheep, drinking their milk and making cheese. It's kind of funny because these giants are strange and they have this eye in the middle of their forehead. And they do such a sissy thing, raising sheep and making cheese and drinking milk. It's like you would think they'd be great warriors, you know, and like powerful, and because they're giants. But no, they raise sheep and they milk and they make cheese. Okay, so weird. Okay, this is weird. Exploring the island, Odysseus and his friends found the cave of the Cyclops Polyphemus, son of Poseidon. They thought to take some milk, cheese, and lambs as supplies for their journey, but Odysseus chose to remain there, hoping to learn what kind of man this shepherd might be. Returning home that evening, Polyphemus drove his flocks inside and pushed a huge boulder across the entrance. After he made a fire, he saw the Greeks hiding in a corner and asked them if they were pirates or traders. Odysseus responded and explained that they were certainly not pirates, but soldiers returning from a great war. The Cyclops, unimpressed with the story, caught up 2 of the men and dashed them on the ground, tore them limb from limb, and devoured them, leaving not even the bones. Forgot to tell you, it's a little gory. But so basically, Odysseus and his men, they're the Greeks, they're the soldiers. This Cyclops Polyphemus is like, are you pirates or are you traders? And he's like, no, we're soldiers. And so he just decided to eat them, a couple of them. Okay. So now,
Soldiers.
They were soldiers, yeah. Yeah. And so already now they're enemies, right? Obviously they're enemies here. Polyphemus then settled into slumber. Odysseus knew that were he to kill the giant in his sleep, he and his men would surely die in the cave, since there would be no way for them to move such a gigantic rock. The next morning, the giant awoke, milked his sheep. I'm thinking these sheep must have been like also giant, because that's strange. Anyway, milked his sheep and devoured 2 more of Odysseus's men. He then left with his flocks, blocking the entrance to his cave with a massive boulder. While the Cyclops was away, they planned their escape. They sharpened a great pole in the cave and hardened the tip in the fire. Odysseus recruited his bravest men to help implement his plan. Polyphemus returned, milked his goats, and devoured 2 more men. Odysseus then offered the giant a drink of sweet and strong wine that they had brought with them. It had been given to Odysseus by a priest of Apollo at Ismarus. The Cyclops drank it, enjoyed it, and asked for more, promising Odysseus a gift if he would tell him his name. Odysseus gave him the rest of the wine. My name is No One, answered Odysseus. So he's got a plan here. He says his name is No One. That's kind of weird, but that's what he's saying here. Now my gift? Polyphemus responded, Ha! Your gift is that you will be eaten last. He then finished the wine and fell into a sound sleep caused by the strong drink. As he was sleeping, Odysseus and his men heated the sharpened pole until it was red hot, climbing onto the giant's great chest, and with all their might thrust the sharp pole deep into the Cyclops' single eye. The wood hissed in the eyeball, like hot iron hisses in water. Ew. Okay. Odysseus and his men jumped off just as the giant leapt up screaming. He tore the stake out of his eye, pushed the boulder aside, and screamed for help. "Are you under attack?" asked the other Cyclopes. Polyphemus cried out, "No one has hurt me." "Well, if no one is hurting you, it must be the gods that do it, and we cannot help you against them." The giants returned to their caves. On the third day, the blind Cyclops let his sheep out of the cave one at a time. As they went by, he touched their backs, as he wanted to be sure that the men did not escape. However, Odysseus and his comrades grasped the underside of the large rams and clung to them as they left the cave, evading detection by the Cyclops. They hurried to their ship, boarded it, and rowed with all their might, or all their strength. As they left, Odysseus shouted, "You are an evil beast, Cyclops, to devour strangers in your cave, and are rightly served in losing your eye. May the gods make you suffer worse than this." Polyphemus heard him and hurled a great rock in the water, which almost drove the ship back to shore, but the crew redoubled their efforts. Odysseus shouted to the giant, "I am not no one. If any ask you who put out your eye, tell them it was Odysseus of Ithaca." The Cyclops hurled another great stone. This one barely missed the ship's stern, but created a huge wave that propelled them almost to the other shore. The end. There you go.
No? Wait, there's a backside.
Sounds like he has anger issues.
Oh,
It sounds like he has anger issues. Yep.
there should be more to the story, though.
It kind of leaves you a little bit hanging, but I guess that the men that didn't get eaten, at least they got to escape at the end.
I've read a longer version.
Oh, yeah, there's probably a lot of different versions out there, I'm sure.
No, it was like the exact same as this, but it was longer.
Okay. All right, so now let's head back to our story sequence chart here. We're going to focus just on this top box for this week. So let's start working on that. Obviously, who is the main character in this story? We've got a couple of main characters. Who are the main characters basically in the title?
The Cyclops,
The Cyclops, and who else?
Odysseus.
Odysseus. So we start out, remember now, we're not looking at each sentence anymore. When we make this story sequence chart, we're looking for this part. We're talking about the characters and the setting only. So we're going to make up these words to put in our keyword outline here. So I'm going to start by talking about Odysseus. Make sure you put it next to the Roman numeral 1. We're going to put Odysseus here. Make sure it's right next to Roman numeral 1. That's your first sentence of your paragraph. Well, let's talk about him for a second. We're going to explain his character a little bit. What can you tell me about Odysseus in the beginning? What can you tell me about him? Anybody have any ideas on what words we can put here about his character, like who he is? Jason, what do you think?
He was a Greek hero.
He was a Greek hero. He was also curious about this Cyclops, right? But I like that. Let's just put Greek and hero, because we still have the same rules, right? We can only use 3 words per line on our keyword outline. We also learn as we go that he's pretty clever, right? He's working up a plan here. So who is with Odysseus? Natalia, who does he have with him? What are some of the other characters here?
His men.
His men. Later, they call him his comrades. Have you guys heard of that word before? His comrades. It's basically friends, but they're also they're soldiers. So they work together, right? So his men or comrades, I'm going to call them comrades. His comrades are with him. Now, Natalia, where are they in this story? So let's make sure we include where they are. Right at the very beginning, look at that very first sentence. Where are they?
On the island of Cyclops?
Yes. So let's put island and Cyclopes with an E. That's plural. That's like the group of people. Notice how it doesn't really matter the order of this right here, as long as it's all fitting within this box. So when you guys start building these by yourself, as long as you include who and where and if when is part of the story, including when, it doesn't matter like how it comes out. It's just got to all be in this box. So notice we have a who here, the comrades, but we also have where on the same line. That's okay, because this is how it's kind of introduced. Now we need to talk about the Cyclopes. Okay, so we got the Cyclopes here. So Ian, tell me about the Cyclopes. How would you describe them?
Hold on. The Cyclopes were very, like, I wouldn't say like religious, but like knowing of the gods.
Okay. How about physically? How would you describe them physically?
Oh, big, have one eye.
Yes, they were giants, right? So let's put giants here. And then you're right, one eye, one round eye. I'm just going to draw an eyeball here.
So kind of like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for taking that off. But okay, that was an appropriate time to do that. So you did fine. So giants with one giant eye. And what was that word? Remember that word uncivilized? Do you know what uncivilized means?
Yeah.
Before, how would you explain that, Ian? What's uncivilized?
It's like being uncivilized means like not very polite
Yes.
and like sort of grotesque.
Yes. Good way to explain it. Not polite, grotesque, probably rude, probably sloppy, and just, not civilized, the opposite of that. So I think uncivilized would be a good one to put here. And then they raised sheep, which is also weird. So what does that make them if they raise sheep? What's that person called that raises sheep?
A shepherd.
Shepherd. Good. So let's put that here. Well, this one guy was, or actually they all were shepherds. Put an S on there. So we got Odysseus is a Greek hero, and then he's with his comrades, and they end up on this island with these Cyclopes, and they're giants with one eye, and they're uncivilized, and they're shepherds. And we can tell a little bit more about the next part, and we're still at the beginning of the story where it introduces what's happening here. Remember, they find this cave. And Jason, what was the name of the Cyclops that Odysseus was interested in learning more about? What was his name? Remember?
Polyphemus.
Polyphemus.
Yeah. So they go, let's
Polyphemus.
cave here. They go to this cave with Polyphemus. I think it's a PH. Yeah. Phemus. And in this cave are his sheep as well. So they went into this cave. We're kind of giving a little more detail about the setting here. They're on the island, but then he follows.
We need to put.
Go ahead.
Do we need to put sheep there? Because I mean,
Because
Like-
they're inside the cave with him. I think it's important to make sure the readers know that.
Well, I mean, like we already said they were shepherds, so
But see how he lets the sheep out during the day, and then
but keeps them during the night.
keeps
Okay.
them during the night. Yeah, so I do think it's important to mention that they're in the cave with him. Them.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian. So then we're done with number 3 here, but there's a little bit more that I want to put here. So that's why we left a space. I actually want you to put a number 4 here if you hopefully you remember to leave a space there. So squeeze in number 4 because a little bit more happens before we move into the next part of the story. They're inside this cave, and remember, Polyphemus builds a fire. And then when he builds that fire, it creates a light in the cave, right? And that's when he notices the men. He builds the fire and then he sees them in the corner. Remember that part? He sees the men. Let's put men here. Those are that is Odysseus and his comrades in the corner. Okay, Jason, did you have something to say about that?
I was gonna say we could put fire, light, and then a symbol for like eyes, and then enemies.
You can. We don't know they're enemies yet, because that hasn't
Sorry.
happened until a little bit later, but you can do eyes if you want. You don't have to make it exactly like mine. But I do want to mention that he pushed this giant boulder in front of the cave entrance, right? So I'm going to kind of draw a little cave looking thing here like that. And then like a big rock. And then an arrow to that rock, because that's showing, because remember he went in the cave. I don't know how he did it. I mean, I don't know how he did that.
Must have been a really big cave.
Must have been a really big cave and a really big rock. And I don't know how he moved it in front of it while being inside of it. But anyway, aside from that, he moved this boulder in front of the entrance to the cave. Okay, so now we've got our
Must
first
have had a handle
paragraph.
inside.
Must have been a handle. That's what I was wondering too.
Just inside, like
To pull it in, something, I don't know, or pull it across. Anyway.
or he used the force.
If you're combining Star Wars. You have your Roman numeral 1 finished now. So this week, you're going to use the information that we put in here together to just write the first paragraph. You guys are just focusing on paragraph 1 this week. So use this outline, write the first paragraph. Now, don't forget you have your checklist. And you've got some new things on here, like those banned words. Don't use seesaw. That's going to be hard because you're going to talk about what he's seeing there, right? So you don't want to use seesaw. You want to use a different word than that. And make sure you have at least one of each of these in your first paragraph. You're only writing your first paragraph. We're going to do these 2 next week. Okay, so we're going to leave these blank. Don't worry about these 2. You're going to focus on this part right here. Just the first paragraph. And use your checklist. Don't forget that. It's really important. And then, of course, your grammar. So do you guys have any questions about homework or anything? No? All right, good job, guys. Keep all this in the front of your binder until next week, and then I will see you next week. Bye.